There's an ongoing and completely incorrect assumption that the rants hidden within the new Tetris for the N64 were written by the same person. I'm going to use the same software that proved that J.K. Rowling and Robert Galbraith are the same person. It's called Signature, written by Peter Milliken, and uses stylometry to analyze writing styles. Essentially, if the graphs are similar, the likelihood of the same authorship is much higher. So let's get ready to see some drastically different graphs. It looks like I have a script to rewrite. Let's start from the beginning. This is not the hunt for Lupin. I should change that. The new Tetris rants are well known, but people tend to focus on the absurdity of the rants and not the contextual ramifications of those rants. So let's make sure we're on the same page. Within the game code for the new Tetris, there exists some rants. They're not accessible through the game itself. A slightly disgruntled lead developer embedded them in the portions of the ROM that would otherwise be unoccupied by game data. He figured it would take years to find, if they found it at all. Anyways, it took about 3 days. ROM stands for read-only memory. ROMs can refer to dumps of anything with read-only memory, but they're typically used to refer to the full data from the memory of the game cartridge itself. So they're basically a direct copy of the game information that can be used with emulators. And the code can be analyzed, often with a hex editor. So why is this important to the story? There's extra space on cartridges. Often it's just blank data, but sometimes developers have a little fun. In this case, that's what the developers did. Sort of. There's a lot of extra text included in the new Tetris, so let's start with the first one, and that will give us a picture of where we're going with this. Starting at point A6CF4 in the ROM, we get this message. It's a copyright message, and there's clearly a little animosity there. And we're seeing some handles. The handles are the reason I believed for years that the two main rants were done by separate people. One is labeled Martist Rant and sign off by Martial Artist, and the other is called Lupin Rant, which I always thought was another person. And although I'm not going to go through each and every line, there are two categories of comments I think should be addressed. The overtly racist comments, and the I'm totally okay with murdering you comments. Let's start with the overtly racist rants, or at least what I consider to be overtly racist by today's standards. But let's not forget, this game is almost 25 years old at the time of this writing. It's not a nice thought, but games, television, movies, realistically all media, has come a long way since the late 90s. So when you read comments like the cheeseheads from Asia who take a Honda Civic, slap some stickers on it, put a muffler on it that makes it sound like a riding lawnmower, a ridiculous sized fin on the back, and think they have a Formula 1 racer, devastating power my ass. Or the same idiots who then drive their hot Civic like they're in the Indy 500 through busy traffic, referring to the cheeseheads from Asia before. Or the huge complex hairdos on African American women. 5 layers, 6,000 curls, 4 sprouting areas, 200 dangling bits, 6,000 beads, air conditioning, and enough hairspray in it that it wouldn't move if Hurricane George hit it. It starts to feel a little racist. However, he assures me by point 35 he dislikes racist people and the crap they spew out. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it, I don't really think the author knew what racism is. Although those points concern me, they're not the ones I want to focus on. I'm going to focus on the ones that feel kind of...
Mom, you should explain that.
Where did that come from? Anyways, she does have a point. Let's do that thing I tend to do, unnecessary background information. Going postal is an American English slang phrase referring to becoming extremely and uncontrollably angry, often to the point of violence and usually in a workplace environment. Alright, so let's quickly go over the origins. The first recorded incident of literally going postal happened on December 17th, 1926 in Adelaide, Australia. After being fired, James Hanvin shot and wounded 2 employees at the Adelaide General Post Office before committing suicide. Canada wasn't too far behind with an incident on October 30th, 1934, where Rosaire Bilodeau, an ex-carrier of the Quebec Postal Service, shot and killed 5 of his own family members before shooting at Postmaster Morin, Divisional Superintendent Oscar Facette, and killing senior mail clerk Moise Jolicoeur. But those are some early examples, not the one that etched the term into popular vernacular. The one that everyone remembered was on August 20th, 1986 in Edmonton, Oklahoma, where Patrick Sherrill, a part-time postal carrier, shot and killed 14 postal employees and injured 6 others before committing suicide. This is the incident that led to the term going postal. The first recorded use was in an article by Carl Vick's Violence at Work Tied to Loss of Esteem, published on December 17, 1993 in the St. Petersburg Times. So that's the Reader's Digest version of why we have that term. And as a person who lived through the 80s and 90s, I can assuredly tell you that not only did information not travel nearly as fast as it does by today's standards, but people were not as numb to these events as they are now. I mean, look at the list of just postal killings after 1986. That's not workplace killings, that's literally a list of post office killings. And to add a little more unnecessary information to the mix, the game Postal, which was released in 1997, drew some harsh criticisms at the time due to the insensitive nature of the name itself. Although violent, and the protagonist is literally called Postal Dude, it's not a disgruntled employee game. But it was still being sold and talked about in 1999, when the new Tetris came out. Wait, what was I talking about? Oh right, the rants. Specifically the Lupin rant. For the most part, it's just a guy complaining about pedantic details. Wait, I wonder if that's true. Oh yeah, he might actually have a point. But others are a little more aggressive, show a clear lack of empathy, or just straight up condone the idea of murder. And given the climate of the late 90s, it wasn't really the best time to joke about murdering people. I mean, right now isn't the best time either. I don't really think there is a good time to joke about murdering people. Let's take a peek at a few examples. People with Kleenex, plants, knitted blankets, stuffed animals, or lacy things in their car's rear window. I should be allowed to pull over and shoot them. Idiots who think they can pedal a bike as fast as a car so they ride in the middle of the traffic lane. You should be allowed to run them over. It looks like natural selection to me. Budweiser beer and the people who drink it. I'd rather suck the piss out of a pig. It's time to poison the bud. Commercials that are so bad on TV, you have to wonder about the shit for brains who thought them up. Like the old Navy commercials, or the old as hell commercial for Sara Lee that is still on the air. Let them eat cake. But Patrick, I'm too old for life insurance. Shoot them all. Lilith Fair. I say when they are all hugging, listening to the music, sharing tampons, and bitching about how evil men are, tossing a few hundred grenades while recording it on camera, sell it as a too hot for TV tape late at night. I mean, that's 5 out of 56 points that specifically talk about killing people. I should also briefly mention that the Columbine High School massacre happened almost exactly 4 months before these rants, and that was very much on the minds of people at the time. So edgelord or not, it's definitely tactless. Okay, so who actually added the rants into the code? The secret credits within the ROM dump list the lead as martial artist. Infuriatingly, at least to me, we know the rants are by the same person, and the development team was pretty small. The lead developer was David Pridie, and the rest of the programming team were Maxwell Sales, Christopher Ewington, Ross Kakushk, and Tim Kraus. So we can assume that the author was David Pridie. So where is he now? Well, that's where the story takes a bit of a turn. After leaving for 3DO, less than 2 years later, David passed away on the morning of Friday, January 12th, 2001, at the age of 29. So he lives on in infamy, on a ROM that was distributed worldwide, and we'll never know if it was just meant to be edgy or if there was a real issue there. But after reading the in memoriam for David, I do get the impression that he wasn't okay emotionally. I'm not implying he was dangerous to others or even himself. I don't know, but the page links to a copy of his farewell letter to his EverQuest guild, a game which was a real addiction for David. And that farewell letter reeks of depression and addiction. Long working hours, long commute times, very little time with his partner, a sense of obligation but not responsibility, and what looks like a mildly addictive personality. It does feel like a recipe for anger and unrest. In the end, I don't think we'll ever know the true intent of the rants. I've left a link downstairs for anyone interested in going through the rants themselves. All web sources are listed within the video itself. Stock video and images are from pexels.com. All music and sound effects are from freesound.org. Research, script, voiceover, and editing are done by Lo-Fi.